Well, we have like our intro is better than that. Like this is just
Oh
our
my.
this is like the prelude to
Oh
this
yeah,
is
that's so
right.
perfect.
Yeah, that's what we've been trying to do for a while. Because it's like, hey everybody,
Welcome. This is NEUROPA, coming to you from Central Europe.
literally. Well, by the way, it's the Global Underground. That's what November 14th is all about. Raf's got the title. It's pretty good. And look at this piece of artwork. I could probably actually just like there. Boom. Look at
Yes,
that.
this was actually created by our dear friend Dietmar, and he's also been telling a story. So, of course, for longest time, and Andreas, you're the first to do this. Again, everyone, check out this very curious channel on Odyssey called Illuminati Archive, where you can see the Vice special with Andreas. It's still, I think, one of the best pieces of probably Vice has ever created, where it's also about Hollow Earth, and that's obviously a recurring theme. Crypto Alchemist is doing things on this. So many people on. I have the Tartaria research collection on my site. You have dozens of people investigating it, many different theories and ideas. And one thing I'd like to bring up today, which maybe cannot be dismissed outright, is the question of the Black Plague and what it really could have been. So, how would you like to proceed? We could just read what has been written. The basic, maybe pull up the link, and then we can go through it.
Sounds like a plan. All right. I had a couple links there I had to go deep through. There's the
Oh
Hollow
yeah.
Earth
Oh
thing.
please,
Oh,
no,
well,
please. But
let me look.
show. Is it on Vice itself as well? Please show us
I
if it's on
think I
Vice.
don't know. I was about to look and see, but I don't know if that for sure. I know that it's online, but like I feel like they were using it for Vice Television or something. But at this point, isn't everything that was on Vice TV back online? So we'd have to
They
find
had a
out.
literal television channel. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. It was at like Vice peak, and they got this television channel, and then they like imploded, which is like because yeah,
I
television.
see.
Who the heck watches like what were they thinking? It was crazy. But hold on, let me go down here. Hidden truth behind the plague, lost battles. Did you want to read this part, or are you talking about want to go to
Yeah,
links or
we should probably read this part. Yeah, these four
okay?
paragraphs. Maybe you want to start, and I'll jump in at halfway.
Drinks a bunch of water. Okay, so start with the hidden truth.
Yes.
All right. The hidden truth behind the plague was it a cover up for ancient struggle between the earthly world and the underworld? A revolutionary discovery is shaking up research. New evidence suggests that the devastating plague that ravaged Europe in the Middle Ages may have been a large scale cover up to conceal an even older conflict between the earthly world and the underworld. Historians and archaeologists are reconstructing clues that point to an astonishing interplay of power, faith, and dizzying secrets. Towns like Weismath and Klosterneurenberg, placed, places with centuries old plague pillars, abandoned trenches, and legends of underground passages, now provide clues to previously unsuspected truths. The forgotten gate to the underworld. For centuries underground, caves and passages discovered in the area like Weismath and Klotzenberg, or Klosterneuburg, have fascinated historians and adventurers alike. Many of these passages have been buried over time or classified as unsecured mines and facilities at risk of collapse. But historical documents and ancient traditions suggest that these tunnels once led deeper and possibly provided access to a world known as the underworld. One theory is that the name Weissmarsch is an old name for Weissmath, which represents the border or march between the upper and lower worlds. This march is said to have once served as a place of transition, a kind of threshold where the boundaries between the earth and the hidden blurred. The name Klosterneuburg could also have been a clue. The new monastery. could have a place where secret knowledge of the underworld was kept. It was the church that had its plague column erected in these areas. Were these monuments actually markers of entrance that were closed? You want to jump in for part two?
Yes. I just want to make sure everyone can get the link themselves so they can check it out. I'm posting it right now.
Fair
Here
enough.
we
Everybody,
go.
you can go to commency.at, like you see right there, and then it'll take you right to his synchronicity YouTube, and then commency at log. And once you get to the log, you can click on the most recent link, and that is this article at the top.
All right.
What is that?
What's up?
PHP? Because it's great. Or are you using WordPress? This is
Oh,
PHP?
this is WordPress. No.
It's working great. I don't know, but I'm gonna come
It's
up with a
working.
PHP backup solution to do the same thing because I like what you're doing here.
All right. So you stopped at
Part two.
end of one. Yeah, right. Okay. So the plague is the perfect cover. The plague that struck Europe in the 14th century was a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. But what if this disease was just the surface of a much larger conspiracy? Historical accounts show that many of the first plague victims died in strategic locations that may have served as entrances to the underworld. People believed it was a divine punishment or a supernatural plague, but the proximity of plague outbreaks to ancient tunnel and cave entrances is more than suspicious. Instead of seeing the plague as simple disease spread by rats and fleas, researchers have discovered evidence that many of the plague's victims were specifically attributed to mystical rituals or battles for access to the underworld. Plague columns, which still stand in many places today, may be more than just monuments. Perhaps they were erected as spiritual seals to seal the gates to the underworld and prevent the spread of the dark forces.
Interesting. So like death markers. Okay, the lost battle and mysterious traditions. Some secret societies of the Middle Ages, including religious orders and monasteries, also always kept their records under lock and key. In these archives, researchers in Kloster Nuremberg found old manuscripts that refer to a battle of the threshold, a cryptic term that is interpreted as a defense against the underworld. Legends of fighters who profess themselves as the guardians of the world are mentioned in these writings with the task of protecting humanity from a dark flood from the underground. But why these stories and clues remain hidden for so long is also part of the discovery. The plague and its fear of those it offered also almost the plague and the fear of it all offered an almost perfect explanation for making all those people and places that joined the fight disappear. Under the mask of plague victims, heroes and warriors disappeared who were in fact on the front line of an invisible war. You want four?
Secrecy and collective forgetting. The revelation about the alleged fight against this underworld also raises questions about power structures and collective memory. Why were such findings not preserved? The suspicion is that powerful institutions work deliberately to eliminate the underworld as a concept and to paint a picture in which such mythical ideas were relegated to the category of superstition. The memory of the Battle of the Threshold may have been deliberately overwritten by the horror story of the plague in order to prevent people from looking for the hidden gates. Monasteries and churches thus created a disease narrative that successfully erased any idea of a dangerous underground in the long term.
Hmm. Interesting.
So what's curious here, just before we
Is
move
this
forward
link
with
part of
this,
it, or is this link part
yes,
of it?
this is a German site that's, I guess, relating some of those concepts or related to some of those concepts.
Like kind of
One
plague
thing,
death markers for the liquefaction locations, or like actually like dead people to keep. Is it like dead people to keep the ground from letting spirits out? Is that kind of like human sacrifices?
I mean, yeah, there is the idea of the question of having trade between the underworld and overworld for, humans, for substances. It's not
No, it's
necessarily
like, do you ever see
exact.
that movie Hellraiser? Right, like
Luckily,
Like,
I didn't. I just know it's quite
oh,
gruesome from the cover or whatever.
luckily I didn't. I don't know. I get you on that to some degree, but there's something about it. There's something about that movie, and also like the sequence of a revel. Okay, in Back to the Future, the band that Marty McFly is in is called the Pinheads because in Hellraiser, the Cenobite King guy is Pinhead, right? And so the Cenobites are these hyper existentialists from a hellscape dimension where they love existential feelings so much they even love like suffering. But this guy who gets sucked into the Pandora's box into hell, he gets back only because there's blood that's dropped onto the doorway, and if it weren't for the if it wasn't for the blood, then there couldn't have been a corporeal transition between one world to the other through the veil. That seems to be a big one. It's just like blood
Oh,
magic.
right, yeah. Blood is the fuel to start the portal engine or what? Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, or something.
I mean, that's a
Yeah.
recurring theme in many science fiction and related fantasy ideas, so it's not completely off the cuff, I guess. What's interesting is that if you look at the locations, whereas the plague was recorded, it
Hmm.
may well be, I'd have to re-verify this, but that this was mainly a Central European phenomenon. Then the question would come up, could there have been some advantage by trading with that quote-unquote underworld? Why are apparently oftentimes castles and monasteries either surrounding or like on top of those things? Because then, and this is just of course a hypothesis or a theory or an idea, a concept, but if there was a world between these forces, of course then comes in this whole reptilian question, all different people claiming there is some hybridization, there's some people that have strange eyes or maybe can shapeshift or god knows what. But I'm just thinking, if there really was a conflict and these records are not completely forged up or based on something real, then I would ask the question, okay, obviously this front line is not there anymore, at least not in the same way. Maybe it's just moved deeper underground or elsewhere. Or, and I'm just spinning the tail here, what would I do if I was this underground force and I'm not really getting through, or maybe I have something's not working anymore? Well, of course, I send my agents upstairs and just take over the government and society. That's what I do.
I'm
So,
I was
yeah.
earlier looking up ley lines in Europe too, or in Germany specifically. So I'd like to see a bit more about where some of these places are, like in terms of plague locations, because I feel like they're often in very important, dense cities. I mean, that makes sense, but also these cities are on all the ley lines because of Roman roads or whatever. Like ley lines make even more sense in Europe where you have straight line roads from the Roman Empire. That's the other thing. So all over the place, like the Holy Roman Empire's got actually they called the ley lines holy lines or something like that. You know what I mean?
I'll relay something related just because I'm getting the updates live here, alive here. So something else, an apparent explanation why they started building churches from bones. So here it says, in folk culture and folklore, there are indeed some indications that bones and human remains in general were considered problematic or even impure for the underworld in certain belief systems and mythology. This perception can stem from various ancient beliefs regarding the peace of the dead, the afterlife, and burial rituals, especially in cultures where the concept of an underworld was strongly rooted. So it was a protection against the underworld potentially. All right, and then it would be the question
Not to
whether the
disrespect it,
churches,
the gods or
whether the
whatever.
churches could actually have been war bastions or like border fortresses if they would contain an underworld passageway and there would be a war between underworld and overworld, then the churches, which previously may have just been trade waypoints, would be turned into literal border stations, right? And
Did
then
you ever see
potentially
that?
fortified.
Did you ever see that movie, that anime, Star Chaser: The Legend of Orin? It's like it's the old one, but it's basically about this kid who he's like a slave underground, and they tell him to dig all the time, and they always say never dig up. Up is hell, you know. But like maybe that's to infer in our reality the opposite, because so much of this idea of Tartarus or Hades is that like the gods are in the underworld essentially, like there's a netherworld.
Yes, and it also reminded me again of the Russian coat of arms, or replicated Archangel Michael. Maybe it's Mohammed, God knows. But anyhow, the archetype of the rider slaying the dragon, right? The dragon obviously would be a underworld figure, reptilian type, slain by someone on horseback, nonetheless. Maybe there's also some indication there.
Hmm. Yeah, Giant and I this morning we're talking the idea of like Ophiuchus as well. That there's sort of like all of these places are kind of the ley lines and everything. They're all aligned around these stars, but the stars realistically are just references to when or where something is at a time. And so if everything's coming from the same point, then there's sort of like a reset point, and that reset is like Ophiuchus. Which what did we find out it was called? Like the Schlongtrager? Schlongtrager? Yeah. You don't know this? Ophiuchus is
Oh yeah,
Der Schlongenträger, bro. Yeah, bro.
the snake bearer. Yeah.
The Schlongenträger is long and hard, bro.
Just
He's
don't
bearing
apply
that
language
snake.
of the birds here, yeah.
He's bro. I think we have to. I'm pretty sure that's what that means. I feel like that's more clear than Ophiuchus, which already sounded like what is Ophiuchus doing to us? Like, let's be honest. Okay, so yeah, Black Plague. I didn't mean like to care what color the plague was, but the Great Plague, I like to say. The Great Plague of 1347 spreads rapidly through Europe. First wave subsides, and then Istanbul, the disease breaks out again and again. And you could probably blame Justin if you wanted to. Looking for expansion of the plague. Skeptics note that many died.
Because today, of course, they put a nice, germ-based disease transmission theory on the back of it
Right.
for a nice backdating and political narrative.
Oh, but it was
But
at the
here,
time curses. They were like it was all because the royal family and everyone was sinning. They like demanded that was the reason. Which, if you think about it, kind of does often lead to like filthiness, like vomitoriums and rotting food. You know.
well, anyhow, the question would be whether once again it could be that there is let's say, a medical explanation given only as a cover-up for a real war occurring. Of course, here we are veering off into the territory of, speculation, because we only have some of these records about underground entities and connections and all of that. But what does exist, as I had mentioned to you 2 weeks ago, I believe, is this underground site in Klosterneuburg, and it does go quite deep. And there are these records in medieval Latin from the abbey that are later got locked away in the Vatican. So some things there at least. And also I briefly wrote with David, and he just wrote basically, yeah, there's been a war about 200 years ago, but it's not exactly clear what it was or what really happened to this day, apparently, at least not publicly. I don't know.
Well, it's also interesting. Like the Christians were underground. The idea of underground railroads. This talks about Dubrovnik and Reykjavik, all these different parts of Croatia that have an extreme underground aqueduct infrastructure from that, like the Roman period or what they call the Roman period, right? So
Right.
there is a lot of there's more underground, more interesting infrastructure underground in parts of Europe where there was nothing else above ground. That's pretty unusual, right? So that makes you wonder about that for sure. Based, okay.
Yeah, everyone, please research, make up your own mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have related stuff. The next thing is actually from Chase. Yeah, you may know him. I think he's a member on the channel. He gave me this insight actually about this colonel who I had mentioned yesterday already. And he was actually talking about something that you had mentioned with the Moonies. So last time I just put up the link, but he's explaining it more, so I'm reading it. Andreas mentioned the Korean Moon family, the Moonies as they're known. And then he says, the Bush dynasty owned an extensive poppy field plantation in South America, which is why Bush Sr. is known as Poppy Bush. I mean, how hilarious is that? The only bigger opium operation than the Bushes was the Moons, who owned an even bigger swath of poppy fields than the Bush dynasty. Oh my God. And here we have the links,
What crazy accusations?
right? Allegedly.
Interesting. Look
So this is
at
just one
this.
insight into this colonel's Twitter feed. And then on the link list, again, I put the Operation Gladio Part 1. On their channel, there is also a playlist on Rumble where you can easily access all the 30 episodes, more or less they did. So far, yeah, also because I got the update in terms of angles, she does believe, or she does apparently believe in nuclear weapons, which of course is important in analysis. And also, it seems, but this is just the first episodes I watched, that she's pretty pro-Trump and maybe like, I don't know, hoping that he will, drain the swamp, which I mean, I have the same hope. Let's leave it at that, but we'll get more to that in a little bit. Yeah, that's so much about that and updates. And yeah, really this Operation Gladio stuff, highly recommended to check out in order to
We're
understand
only
the
like
worldwide
was it week
trading
one?
patterns.
Week one
Week one?
into a 4-year presidential um, what do you call it, campaign or presidential term. We're only 1 week into a 4-year presidential term that hasn't begun yet, and everyone's already made a lot of decisions about like what they expect. But I mean, until anything is seen, like right now, we're seeing like some pretty interesting people chosen to be in government. So I don't know.
Oh yeah, I'll bring up a few more links about that briefly, actually, or actually right now. We're on topic, actually.
Well, yeah, I just want to make sure I opened up the parts you had from Chase here. So make sure you covered all these. You had some interesting things with Lockheed, Rocks, Rockefeller, right? Did you bring up Lockheed or am I crazy?
I honestly didn't go through the tweets yet. I only watched the first 4 episodes of her playlist so far. But it just seems that really this Operation Gladio, she calls it, to take on the Operation Gladio glasses. And again, Gladio would be like stay behind armies after the Second World War, potentially even related to the werewolf armies from the Germans. This is like even I had learned about this concept. They seem related. There is also, for example, Daniele Ganza, who's like a German historian, researcher. And even here, I can tell you, he recently was touring Austria, and he's really like a very friendly, peaceful, I think even Swiss guy. Like what can you say against a Swiss guy who's talking about Gladio? But at least from one particular venue, he was literally disinvited in Austria because some sort of political action group, God knows by whom they are funded or motivated exactly, managed to kind of having banned from presenting in a certain venue. And all he's doing, from what I understand, is giving very basic, really not too conspiratorial, very well researched information about Gladio. But this appears to be one of the topics that is really untouchable by the political or whatever class in Europe, because so many seem to be intertwined. And what Chase also wrote, which I think is very correct, is how intertwined then is it also with Silicon Valley, right? And there I'd only know this Google talk, The Secret History of Silicon Valley, where they explain to you that this was actually during World War One, and two, they developed the radars and all kind of that stuff. And big surprise, like the modern tech giants are literally born out of the military industrial complex. Big surprise, right? But then it may also well be that they are still, of course, in cahoots or entangled with whatever kind of alphabet soups,
I
which
got
then
one.
opens up the door for blackmail and God knows what else.
I made
What
this
you found?
post.
You found one company.
No, I made this post like earlier today. I should share it. Lockheed Martinism is a thing. So like I was just like doing kind of like a thought spiral in my mind for a second there, and I'm like, Lockheed Martin, and then I was like Martinism. I was like Martinism, and Martinism is kind of weird, right? Martinism is like a Gnostic heresy, esoteric Gnostic heresy, obsessed with the fall of
Hmm.
man, right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's created by this Bordeauxian guy in France, Louis Claude de Saint Martin. And so it's kind of interesting, like Lockheed and like Louis Claude, like even just Louis Claude and Lockheed to me is like enough to see that. And so just like to continue on this idea that there's forward and backward. There's something about Martin, and yeah, I don't know. Just because just because of what you were saying, basically.
Well, I think Lockheed Martin probably in many areas very forwards, but I think whatever the public sees is very backwards. So what can I tell you?
Well, I mean, it's just I imagine that if you're successful at what they're working on, then you should like in the future or the past, it should be pretty useful. It should be pretty useful in the
Someone
past as
says
well.
Martin Loki. I'm not
Yeah,
sure, but
Loki, Martin. Yeah,
oh right.
Loki.
Oh, Lockheed, right. Of course. Yeah, yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
slow.
No, but it's like kind of it's kind of real. Death object exploding the nuclear weapons hoax.
Oh wait.
Akio
You
Nakatani. Oh, did I go too
you
far?
jumped over one or two
I
things.
got too excited. I don't know. I'm sorry. Here, Operation Gladio. Here's where we were.
Yeah, so
My bad.
that's the
And
channel,
then
the first episode in the playlist, and
and
then
then
here,
Netanyahu. Oh
right.
no, I thought he was like talking to him. I was like, what? She was not talking to Netanyahu. That'd be crazy.
That would be amazing. So what
I
we
mean,
can do here
yeah, sure.
is if we have audio on this, I'm not sure. It's not absolutely
Um,
necessary,
I
but
can probably get some on. Hold on. Let me see
we
here.
could give him like 3 minutes
Yeah. Where
airtime.
you want me
But
to?
they don't really have a definitive
Yeah,
understanding
so
of what
pause, please. And
Hmm.
now be careful because we don't want to get banned here. So let's go to minute 13
Okay.
or and play only like a minute, not more.
I used to get 10 million views a day. Elon Musk, that little doofus who's never created anything, had to put in all sorts of shadow banning. And we expose this. We have a federal court case against him. So the reality is they do not want bottoms up movements because it is only a true bottoms up movement which will expose them. Anyone coming top down can't expose them because they're owned. So as a part of this, we were very consistent about Kamala and Trump. Two sides of the same coin, okay? And in many of these discussions, I shared with you that this is like marketing. So here's the swarm. They have two different designs they're trying to see which hook will work, right? Or if you're fishing, you use different lures. Will Trump be able to deceive the masses better so they can continue their agenda, or will Kamala? And that's one dimension. Or what kind of approach do they want to take? Do they want to be liberal Zionists, or do they want to be heavy-handed Zionists?
Okay, good. That's good for now.
Well,
Please pause. And now go to minute 16 and again play for like 1 or 2 minutes, and we should be good. A bit earlier, 16. Yeah, thank you.
Burn, who 9/11, call Cynthia McKinney 9/11. So Stein is a liberal Zionist. So what happened was the swarm decided we need a real Zionist who will help finish the job. And that's what Trump said, who will just do things for money and get the shit done. Kamala does the same thing, but they needed a heavy-handed person. They needed people who could confuse people, all these idiots thinking, Kennedy stands for health when he has said, I believe in total vaccination, full vaccination of all Americans. I vaccinated all my people. And then they give him a brand called Maha, right? Or you take Elon Musk, who they've sold as a fighter for free speech. Elon Musk has openly said free speech does not equal free reach. It's an advanced form of censorship. You have Vivek Ramaswamy, who's a big pharma bullshitting Brahmin who just made up drugs that don't even work. Okay? And you can go on and on. These people are absolute con men to the power of 10.
I think that's good.
So
I just thought, since at least his argument with in terms of equal speech does not mean equal reach, from what I can understand, he's certainly kind of been shadow banned. Even we did an episode with him, and I don't know, did you get any notification what happened to it? But it got nuked from YouTube. It's still on Odyssey. So
Oh,
you
did
guys
it?
can check out Exertus Shiva.
I
Maybe
thought we
look it
still
up
had
now,
it,
even
Zigon.
if you want to.
I thought I still
If
had
you
my
want to.
Shiva. Yeah, I still have my Shiva up. Shiva's still up on YouTube.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Hold on, let me
Yeah, but
if I go back and find it here. Boom, right there. Shiva. Election cycle systems theory with Shiva. It's not a NEUROPA episode per se, maybe. We should title it NEUROPA That's probably why. 'Cause it doesn't say
Okay,
NEUROPA
for
in the
some
title.
reason I didn't find it. Okay, but it's still there. Well, I'm glad for
Yeah.
it. I think it's definitely good to check out, and I thought, with the election and so on, at least, give him a few minutes airtime to relay his main message. Anybody other than that, can go check out his Odyssey channel. I do think he has a valid and unique perspective. And then at the same time, to maybe, if you want to deliberate that further, you can open up the next link. I only caught maybe 15 minutes, but I want to watch it in a whole. I just find it incredibly interesting. So Adam Green is a known, let's say, Zionist critic. Brother Nathaniel is as well. And what they're interestingly doing here is they're actually debating whether Trump, let's say, is pro-Zionism or not. And I just find that a very interesting discussion, how they have quite differing views. And again, I guess it shows, you can see anything you want to see. But I just thought, to anyone who wants to, deliberate more about this idea, what connections does Trump really have, or allegiances? They maybe want to listen to those guys debating about it. I thought it interesting because I would not have expected those two individuals to debate about that. So yeah.
I don't know why, but somehow I broke the link just now. But you can go. You guys saw it. It was there. It's real. It exists. Okay, here it goes. It's coming back. But yeah, you can get the Adam Green from the Commencey right there. Here we go. It's coming back. We'll have to check this out and watch this through. Here, maybe we can listen
And it's
to
just
like a
very
quick.
interesting because both make claims about any particular cabinet or whatever position. And then one guy says, oh, but he's got this and that background relation and so on. And the other guy says, no, don't worry. Trump will rein him in. He can't do anything. And he's just playing with them or whatever.
Image of
And of course, it's
something that happens
always
and
difficult.
manipulate Trump to go into war. You really think Trump's going to stand up to that?
No, the American people voted the power out. The Jew power is not going to be part of Trump's administration. It's going to be
The
America.
20% of Jews in America, the religious right, and Ben Shapiro and Likud wanted Trump in. They were desperate for Trump. They were bending over backwards, giving him every award they could. Did you see on Election Day in Crown Heights, there was a truck going around with speakers, and it said, "We're ready to sit on the throne, and Trump helps us," and stuff.
It's true.
So in any case, it's very curious, these two, how they have opposing views. I want to listen to it more.
Yeah.
And then of course, because it's always difficult, just like, I don't know if we talked about this, with who is affiliated with whom. Only because Trump is shaking hands with Klaus Schwab, does it mean they're secretly best buddies, or is it only because he's a president and of course he's playing nice and congratulating the guy even though he hates him? Yes, no, maybe. Is it a secret club? Is it a secret club and within the club they have divisions? All these speculations. But anyhow, ideologically or in terms of political arena, you can go watch that debate if you want to have some ideas. Then the next thing I brought up is something very interesting. This is also from Chase, related to the Colonel, because she's not talking about nuclear, or maybe keeps the common trope about nuclear weapons alive. This is an interesting blog post. I'll have to go through it properly, which proposes that the mass media reporting on nuclear weapons could actually be coding for some sort of blackmail, which I would not be surprised by, because in my understanding, at least nuclear weapons are not exactly what they are purported to be. Even if they were, there would not be a reason to report about them that the way it is reported. Therefore, given the assumption that what is being reported is just a filler, or is something else, then it would just make sense to use that available space to send some coded messages. I'll have to look into it properly, but I thought it was a very interesting idea.
I mean, it's pretty hilarious at very least. Like, yeah, they had to use sperm whale lubricant, so clearly that's about the bikini bottom. This is pretty good conspiracy rabbit hole here. Ooh. The same day that the explosion happened, it's the same day that he died. It's all just human trafficking cover-ups. Okay. I can see that being a big thing. Because they can't say what's going on. But they have to publish it in the news anyway? Like, why? What's their reason? Why would they talk? Okay, this is an interesting idea. the
Maybe just to let
entire
people
world.
know the coding, and in this way they get informed about it, because anything about nuclear will always be reported worldwide, because potentially it could be a meltdown and the world could go up in flames. So everyone will hear about it everywhere. And then if I'm in the club, then I will know it's actually about something different, and then maybe cross-reference or something like that. I don't know.
The Fat Man, Virgil Parch. I mean, there's definitely something about all this, the hypersexuality of all the titles of everything. But it could just be a Kubrick thing too, right? I don't know. I'll have to read it. All right. Nuclear Decoded. Nuclear. Nuclear. You can check that out right there. And then Death Object. This is also kind of on that. This is the thing that I pulled up earlier. Sorry. Death Object Exploding the Nuclear Weapons Hoax by Akio Nakatani.
Yes, I haven't read this book yet. This was also recommended by Chase. I'm familiar about some of the concepts, I guess, from different angles. I didn't know there was I guess, originally Japanese book or written by a Japanese individual, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it's nice because apparently this is even on archive.org. However that works now, I don't know. But introduction Satan too.
New and improved.
This is great.
Vegetarian.
This is amazing.
Yeah, maybe. I know that the Soviets had used, they say that the Soviets stole our, what's the name of the couple, right? The Rosenbergs. Is that right? Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were spies. They were espionaging scientists, whatever. They took the nuclear secrets, it's the American story anyway, and brought them to the Soviet Union. So that way it was just not in a sort of singular monopoly in that the whole world had access to this technology and anyone could make nuclear. So
Oh
some
yeah,
call
and
them
just
sinners, some
as
call them saints.
just as we're on the topic, I recently heard a story, but
Green glass.
this was a live and real demonstration about the ability to create intense heat within water by using something akin to wolfram, if that's the proper word, wolfram as an element, and somehow not added to water, but like some type of particular experiment where apparently only by adding this and maybe some other elements to water, you could cause it to heat up like crazy. These experiments have been independently verified.
Wow. So wolfram is the name of tungsten. Weird.
And why I'm bringing this up now is just because if a nuclear power plant knowingly works by using water steam, and if there really is a method where you use something like tungsten, for example, and you can also heat up water and it's almost not even using the metals or something, then also the whole uranium or whatever else they claim they're using thing could be for something else, let's say. I'm not saying that this is actually how it is in nuclear power plants. I'm just saying that, again, these experiments have been verified independently. And then all you would need for a nuclear power plant, which is the same as today, is just a lot of water. Some water you can heat. You have the turbine, and then lots of water which you can cool with. And then some type of method of having it react to heat it up. But if that heating up reaction is possible without any radioactive material, then this is, again, another, potential cover story, or however you would
Yeah, but the
say
idea
it.
is to have something that's like super small so you don't have to constantly refuel it. Any other kind of fuel source like tungsten will dissipate.
From what I understand, it's not really, maybe I misspoke or wasn't clear enough. It's not really a fuel. It's just more like a catalyst, the way it was explained to me, at least.
I mean, you'll have a chemical reaction, but it'll burn off eventually. Like the thing will be eventually destroyed in the process from the chemical reaction. Or something will eventually finish, right? Like there's an entropy law. So with nuclear, the idea is there's such an extreme potential energy that it's lasting for hundreds or thousands of times as long. So you can have it going for years and years and years and years and years. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be super dangerous. But that's like why right now 3 Mile Island or different reactors that Microsoft and Facebook and Apple, etc., Google, they want to turn on nuclear reactors because supposedly AI is using so much energy for every question that it's being, every AI picture that's being generated, every time you make a picture of a duck, that's as much energy as a family uses in a house in America.
This will be the excuse for the new German government next year to restart their atomic nuclear plants.
That's what they're doing right now in America.
We need to power the AI revolution.
Yeah, that's what literally it's happening here right now. So the thing is, maybe nuclear is a lie, but I think the lie is that it's as dangerous as the petroleum companies tell you. And I think that we do know that you can store intense amounts of potential energy. So it's not irrational to say that we have potential energy like thorium.
All I know is that from the examples I know of, there have been too many methods that I was aware of during the years where they claim at the very least that even if there would be some kind of radioactive issue, they would have tools to clean that up. Same actually with oil. There was this massive oil spill quite a few years ago by now, and it was a huge mess in the media for weeks or months. And even back then, actually, I was aware of a company that simply created a substrate which you could put on top of the oil film. It would like somehow crystallize it or whatever, and then fish could literally eat it. But yeah, of course, they were not mentioned during that crisis at all. So I just want to point out that even for these potential crisis scenarios, assuming they are real and have a negative effect on the environment, there are oftentimes solutions which deliberately are not being implemented just to make it appear scary, whatever it is. And it maybe depends which industry you're propagandizing for, whether you're more attacking oil or nuclear.
I think it's really interesting that, for instance, we've had so many issues with electricity brownouts, crisis, and people dying, and nobody give a damn. But now that people can generate pictures of cats, like they're willing to, like people have like been fighting about nuclear energy for 60, 70 years. But now that people can generate an erotic short fan fiction, like it's just like whatever, like just AI, commodity, consumer reality is so interesting. 'Cause it's not even that you're paying exorbitant amounts of money. It's like a free service, allegedly, and it's not efficient. Like it's using an insane amount of energy. It's using 50, 60 times the amount of energy you use in a day every time it has a single thought. And we're saying that that's worth, like that's the reason that we're turning on the nuclear things that we've struggled or whatever, fought against, whatever. I don't know. Not that like we should though, because again, it seems like petroleum companies were lying to you. And so they just wanted to keep nuclear down for a long time. Specifically in the 50s, you have this point, we talked about Lockheed Martin. Martin was doing, we're going to make machines that can go to the moon and back in like 6 times a day. In like 15 minutes, you'll be able to do all this stuff. And all of a sudden, they just get really quiet about all that stuff. And instead, you have this like, this government is being replaced with bureaucracy, and the military-industrial complex circumvents the government, essentially. So you've got a complete dissipation of any progress that could be happening. We're not allowed to see it anymore. But that's probably where it is. It's like there probably is successful nuclear at that point, and then they say, okay, well, let's keep it. As soon as we get to the most efficient point, let's keep it to ourselves and exhaust the public of all of their resources, as for a few generations, until we can New World Order, right? Like, fun story.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe the New World Order and the forced digital ID will come with a free bank account and free energy for your AI software.
Oy vey. Okay, CIA AIDS is the next one you've got.
Okay, so here we are. Right. Maybe you skipped over one. No, you got it. That was the book. Thank you. This also relates, just because I brought up this kernel and the Gladio thing, and this was a book that was recommended to me by a dear friend who's a biologist, who's been explaining this whole, well, HIV issues to me already many years ago, which why I was kind of on top of it when the whole sea crisis happened, because I'd researched these things even further and was aware that maybe things in the medical establishment, especially concerning virology, are not always as they appear. I mentioned this many times before, I'm not repeating it. However, I can still recommend, and I did this before, everyone to go watch her. This is only like, I think, an hour or something, a basic outline. Other than that, you can check out her book. Highly recommended to read because it explains both the medical background and historical background and labeling background about HIV and AIDS, how that came about, and also some economic background, which at that point I could relate even more easier, or was maybe even, well, equally interested in. And it really helps when you see it from both sides, like have a basic medical understanding of what's really going on and historical, so how that could come about, and also at the same time the economic interest. And because she's even mentioning things like, you know, money laundering through restaurants and stock exchanges, this and that, and how it also, you know, these big businesses are very intertwined. And yeah, she calls it AIDS, opium, diamonds, and empires. So she's relating it also back to the opium trade, which is a known trope by now, I guess, with the robber barons, and how that in different ways is a continuation of the same patterns. Definitely, she has a great book that's worth checking out. Maybe she has more interviews. I'm not sure, but that's the one I'm aware of.
Dr. Banks. All right. Hold on. Let me put on just a quick.
Why is that? Because we've known for over 100 years that opiates, which are opium, heroin, and also the other derivatives that we use, such as codeine and those kinds of things, are immune suppressive. And they knew that because the elites of this country and England have been involved in the drug trade for several hundred years.
That's going to be great, everybody. You're going to want to watch that. But it's true.
No, I think
right?
really
You look into the big
she's on
pharma
point.
companies and like it's totally on point. Exactly. That's exactly the human trafficking and drug trade and like the forced what do you call it, where you like the opium wars in China are all about forcing people to take the drugs. It wasn't enough just to sell the drugs. They actually got the public hooked on drugs on purpose, right? Like it's kind of a warfare. Important stuff. Actually, I was thinking about it. I want to post it. This is actually another thing. I said earlier, what was it? It was if you watch legacy media, you'll notice in between propaganda, about 80% of the time, playing commercials for pharmaceutical companies that will soon potentially be in a costly war for their own survival under the new administration. Right.
So wait, they're saying the pharmaceutical companies aren't going to get all the airtime anymore, or what?
That's what I'm saying, because you know, if you watch legacy media, so like if you go on CNN, right, like which nobody does because it's a dying media for a dying audience that is literally old and dying. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of people left that like even watch TV. Like, right? I mean, it's sad but true. So legacy media is disappearing, and
All right,
they're
so
not
now
gonna,
the
there's
pharma
not going
ads
to be
are moving to YouTube, or what?
they're not going to be $20 million deals for what's his name, you know, Anderson Cooper, right? Like that's over, right? And there's not going to
Because
be
what I recently heard again is the reason that they spend so much money is not to really make advertisement, but just to make sure that all those investigative reporter on CBS is maybe not going to look into Pfizer too deeply if they're back-to-back
well,
advertising.
I think it's more than that. It's like that Pfizer again, because like as I'll say it again, maybe like it wasn't clear. If you watch like hold on, let me put up the tweet so you can even read it as I say it. Hold on. If you watch legacy media, you'll notice in between propaganda, about 80% of the time playing commercials for pharmaceutical companies that will soon be potentially in a costly war for their own survival and in the administration. So the idea that pharmaceutical companies control what television is because they control what the government is, and they have always had the money necessary to make the public opinion. So soap operas, right, are really like these drug store shows and the drugstore magazines. And this has always been part of the, the psychology of drugs, is that you have therapy with drug. So these pharmaceutical companies are actually building and manifesting an inebriated state with a full gestalt for you to experience, right? And it's a nightmare. Like if you ever took acid and watched television and you saw like the lizard people, that's, it's a nightmare, basically.
They live.
Hold on, too far back. Let's see. Silicon Valley, waves of history, innovation. This looks interesting. Oh, I don't
Yes.
have the screen open for you to see, but I liked it. Okay, this guy here. Want me to I'll try to, every time I do it, it makes me close the window again because I'm doing sound.
Circuit
here.
wave, personal computer wave,
Can't
internet
hear it.
wave. And it doesn't mean
No
that
reason
everyone
sound's not working.
find history where
working.
every person of these waves meant
Oh, I can't.
internet
hear it.
wave. And it
We
doesn't
can hear it.
mean that every one of these waves
can
meant
turn on
everybody
CC.
in the valley was just doing this. But it meant at that period of time,
Strange.
there was a core concentration of expertise in Silicon Valley, in this local area, on each one of these domains. And what I want to talk about today briefly is an area you probably know very little about, and that's the area about defense.
Okay, that's good. So yeah, basically that's he's saying it right there. And just to let everyone know, this is a Google talks at Google, back in 2010 when not everyone could afford video bandwidth or
They
whatever.
were
And this
great
guy's literally
talks
telling
back
them,
then.
by the way, did you know that this is like an ultra military industrial complex deep state operation since 100 years? And and this also again relates back to this whole Gladio thing I mentioned in the beginning and the kernel. These are all connecting pieces, I would say. And this one I've been aware of for, I don't know, quite a few years. I stumbled across it somehow, somewhere. It was like, oh, interesting. I mean, I was always kind of aware/wary that something strange must be going on in California. Also, yeah, Nancy Turner Banks talks about this also, how actually the drug trade is kind of involved in funding tech as well, or was, or
Yeah.
and there is California or Baja California or Tijuana or whatever you have, go watch any of these series about Pablo Escobar, right?
And West Coast,
It may-
Best Coast, up and down.
it may well be that they somehow used some of that money, and then suddenly it's a venture capital firm, which I don't know. To me, unfortunately, this fits together quite nicely, and also would explain why certain places suddenly have so much infinite money to do anything, and have even so much money that there can be, to use a politically loaded term, 100 entrepreneurial abortions just to get one unicorn, or even 1,000, right? How are you able to afford that? Well, if you made good buck without paying too many taxes, you can afford things like that.
The taxes are the philanthropy when you make that kind of money.
Exactly.
Oh
yeah, and
Colonel's
also just
Corner.
because that was the last image you had on, but you don't have to
Yeah.
go back. Also explaining
No, I
in the
will.
Second World War how they were really strong in
New
developing
Schwabenland.
the radar technology, and were at least on that level really trying to one up each other. If they really were, I don't know, or if there was another orchestration in the background. But in any case, he's showing how Silicon Valley was deeply involved in heavy military tech, and even
Yeah.
today, Lockheed Martin, I mean, is still there, right? You have Stanford Research
grandpa-
Institute, so you have the MK Ultra faction, you have the industrial military.
When my grandfather worked
academic.
at Lockheed, there was like I think I might have told this story to you already, but like about the radar paint, like the radar proof paint, like they painted a building, and it was no longer visible by the radar, like it completely went through the thing. So there's all kinds of pretty cool technology that they were playing around with, and at my mom's house, I still have we have a patio umbrella that's made out of like Vectran. Let me show you Vectran.
Velcro, maybe I know, but not Vectran.
Vectran is a liquid crystal polymer created by the Celanese Corporation. Okay. It's a aromatic polyester. This stuff is like bulletproof. It's pretty crazy. It's more than bulletproof. If you were to make like a spaceship that was a balloon, right? So this is kind of the idea. What if you were to launch a um, a payload and you want the payload to expand, and then it has to be able to deal with any sort of like being shot with bullets or with knives or with particles or meteors, whatever you want to say, then this is the material for you, right? Like this is the material that will survive anything. Like it's basically spun glass, elven crystal glass, right? So yeah, we've got these umbrellas that are like 30 or 40 years old at least. And they're just because they're like sewn out of Vectran. They're never gonna go bad. It's great. Good job, Grandpa. Okay, so the Colonel's Corner.
Yeah, so that's just from the Colonel mentioned earlier, her Substack, I guess, just to show that that exists as well, and just to have an entry point into the politics session. Yeah, there's a few more interesting things here as well, but not on the blog. So that was just to show that it exists. I haven't really checked through it yet. Like I said, I just started watching the podcasts.
All right,
But
interesting.
it seems interesting because she's like, Colonel. She's also explaining, which I think is really important to understand. Oh, that'd be interesting what she says about the toilet seat, toilet base. That she's a colonel also explains how the generals are political appointees and cannot even literally have their own minds. And it seems that she's seen a lot, but also then for whatever reason, I didn't catch that exactly, getting into all of that research or learning about it. And it's cool because she's, piecing things also together as she goes. And she appears very genuine, to me at least. So I think it's a cool source for this kind of research. For example, the one I watched recently was about Congo and Lumumba. I only heard the name, but she's giving quite a different view on the history, and whether, her view then is correct or not, but it's always good to have an opposing view, because she's claiming, for example, many individuals during that time of governments were labeled communist when all they were doing was potentially striving for sovereignty or something like that, as in this particular example. So there's probably many concurrent angles, and all the world is a stage, or God knows what elite
While
factions
like
they're maybe
George
fighting.
Bush Sr. was president, the irony, you know what I mean? Just the palpable irony, neoconservative Marxism. Every time. Dick Cheney's a Marxist, bro. That's what I'm trying to say. Oh man, the DEI version of 2016. This is it. Well, I guess I don't know. I wonder. Should we
yeah.
just see what happens? I
Oh
don't
no,
even
and
care.
here all I wanted to do. Wait, you can pause it.
I feel like it's just fake though. It's like obviously she's like, I want
Oh,
people to see me in my car yelling. Like that's
no,
not the same as like
no,
catching
totally.
somebody
All I
screaming.
wanted to do, there was a fun. I mean, at least for me. Wait, one
Like,
second.
did you see the power lesbian that killed her father?
No, there was one particular part I wanted to show you, which is at 8:50, I think.
Okay, 8:50.
I just thought it's funny, and also, of course, these may well be fake or actors. So
And
this
women.
guy, and then and right after him, the girl.
Did she
But you have
just
to go
say
to the
what I
start.
think she said?
You skipped over it.
Did she just say what I think she said?
Motherfuckers play. I'm gonna go to sleep.
What'd she say?
I might wake up a motherfucker.
She's gonna wake up a slave. Okay,
Play.
I'm gonna wake up a slave.
I just thought that was
Well,
hilarious. Because what would be the real
It's
joke?
kind of meta
Real-
because we are all. I mean, right? Like,
No, the
it's-
real joke is, do you think that, and no matter your skin color, when you woke up today, you think you weren't already a slave? So
Yeah,
that would be my
right.
question. But
Not a Slav, but a slave. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't know. That's like pretty wild the way people were responding to this. Yeah, it's pretty weird. But the worst one was power lesbian, which I'm still, and I went to college. Like I've seen a lot of different kinds of lesbians. I think I know what they mean by power lesbian. I'm not completely sure, and I'm admitting that. Power lesbian Corey Burke murdered her father with an ice axe. An election night meltdown at Seattle home. A Blue Origin employee married a Blue Origin employee. This is the kind of people that they're.
If you want to show it, you have to switch the tabs.
Oh,
Just to
I'm
let you know.
sorry. I'm
No, that's
sorry. It
fine.
wasn't really like that important. Like I don't actually
no,
have a
just-
picture of her. Here it is. Here she is. Blue Origin employee Corey Burke, 33, power lesbian. I didn't make that up. As a
33.
title. Yeah. Allegedly killed her
That's
father
great. Yeah.
during. Look at this. All of this is true. Blue Origin employee. That's a fact. Corey Burke, power lesbian. That's a fact. Allegedly, though, is only when it says killed her father during a mental health crisis on election day in Seattle. That's like the only thing that like we needed to know to even care about whether she was a power lesbian who was 33 years old. That's so weird. Like that they made it all alleged when I mean there's a dead father on election night and she admitted she said it. She said like, look at this, dude. Also, she's married to a trans author, Samantha Leigh Allen.
It's on a
Is-
website, and there's some pictures. It must be real.
Well, she said that she murdered her father. She's like, Brooke claims she knew that the killing needed to happen today, according to police report. Like, what do you even mean allegedly at that point? Like, where's the alleged coming in? Like, why is it in the middle of the sentence? I don't know. Like, it seems like it should have been before power, but I don't know. Like that, it's weird.
What percentage of media report is deliberately engineered and forged and manufactured only to create the apparency of dissent and the political divide, and America or Europe or any country is being torn apart? Very oftentimes it seems those are just manufactured social media or actual news report stuff just to make people believe in the political drama.
Yeah. Or like she's legitimately like a power dominatrix who's been slipping estrogen into the coffee
Yeah,
of
but
their
this is like
lover
any
for like years.
Republican dad's nightmare or something.
True,
It's like
true,
it's
true.
made for that, you know?
I like it. I think it's
And
cool.
let's not forget, at least she was 33. Yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Nova
always something to
Otsukoro.
take note of.
Let's pull up Donut's next video, maybe. Donut has a thing here. What's up, Donut? Nova.
Oh yeah, so I just wanted
Socorro.
to give the reference that Elon Musk tweeted this. You know, people can debate about what it means or not. I have the one or two further links are more perspectives on that. Yeah, we don't even have to discuss about it too much.
Well,
but
is there
it's
any
just
part you wanted to
highly-
show? I mean, I'm sure Paranoid American will let us get away with that. He's a good old boy.
Oh, no, I just
going on,
wanted to point
Paranoid?
out that he's been
Very
talking about it, and also
Coincidence.
other people have been
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about it as well.
That's the organic sync code. That's that organic sync code.
47.
Myself, we are
Surah 47 is Muhammad in the Quran. I'll keep repeating
Kamala
that.
Harris is not a master of rhetoric. She doesn't really have that trait anyways. So if you've already heard her kind of banter on and cackle before in any other speech, you can just sort of assume, like guess what she said and apply that to this.
I'd be looking, okay, first lady sitting right here. You know, what kind of utensils they use and who's drinking what over here, like who's drinking this. You know, I like to study the image and work my way up and like what are they doing though, for real though, right here. Say lesbian.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
Basically,
Well, yeah, definitely check out Paranoid American like anytime you get a chance. You know what I mean? For sure. And yeah, make sure you like that video.
So I think the next video shows it. The question is now, of course, what does this exactly mean? Is this all just, fun signaling? Why is MAGA, referring to Magus, which would be a rank in a, let's just say,
Well,
not
I
exactly
think it's
Christian society?
I think it's the Krav Maga, right? Like it's like the
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's the protection for Israel, right? This is the martial protection of Israel, Krav Maga. Yeah, probably.
And yeah, so let's go through them one by one because you skipped over one again, I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
did I miss a guy? Hold on. Dark MAGA
Dark Matter
symbol.
Assemble. Yeah, right. So this is from Call for an Uprising was his original nickname. This is one of the guys who apparently gets deleted off YouTube every few months. And yeah, also from what I understand, how should I say, giving the view of all the world is a stage, which I would have to agree with. Some say he's a bit of a doomsday guy and very apocalyptic, which, is this, I'm not sharing this for any, fear-based reasons, but just to give another perspective from someone who is, let's say, not believing in either side or criticizing either side, which I think is an important perspective to contain. And the same thing actually for the next video. So here's, I guess, he's just showing different symbolism and strange, tropes being used. I mean, Space Force, what can I say? And here also interesting, this is one of the German researchers I've been sharing a few times by the name of Trust No Celebrity, who's, I think, doing pretty good work. And here he's accurately showing that he's even predicted years back that most likely Trump will win. He predicted it when the Mar-a-Lago thing, the raids happened, the supposed ones. And even here, from somewhere, somehow, I saw the reportings on this, would have to check again. But surprisingly, it was like 33,000 documents or something like that. Just like Hillary Clinton had 33,000 emails and all of these things. So it very much looks like these very big media events may as well just be thoroughly coded through and just following a script, And
Well,
he's
certainly.
talking about the art of the comeback.
I feel like as close as you get to the singularity or the beginning of time or like to particular moments, it's probably like on a train track at a certain, like, just for safety. The moments are pretty well scheduled. You know what I mean? Like, think about how many people have tried to mess with a moment. They probably are pretty well. The time police. That's my pitch.
Yeah, blame it all on the TVA.
Yep. Okay, so let's see. Donald Trump. We saw this one.
Yeah, this one we had. So that's a German guy, but really recommended to watch.
Yeah.
And then here, someone else who's, I think, highly interesting also because he accurately predicted quite a few crisis events is Ole Dammegard. And he's giving his perspective on the Trump happening earlier this year. And I have to say, I agree with 95% of what he's saying. And also what he's saying, which I find interesting because he's talking about this, what he's observed for many years, these crisis actors moving about and causing all kinds of ruckus and issues. And he's saying that he has not yet readily identified a positive group because people always wonder, oh, it's done for positive reasons. He says he hasn't been able to identify a positive group yet. And this one I'm showing because one particular special he made here 5 years ago was about the shoes of death. So basically the shoe symbolism that this is often used in so many different crises to trigger this, fear, death response, whatever hypnotic, talismanic effect that the people showing this want to clean. And he's just putting it together for many different crises. And then, of course, we are remembering that Trump was worried about his shoes and even called out for it 3 times. So yeah, anyone who wants to tell me that's not an advanced stage play, kindly go ahead. Yes, I just think this is a really cool guy. I listened to many different analyses that he made over the years, and I think he's one of the few honest guys that's pretty spot on, worth watching.
That goes stupid. Why on earth would they give away clues about what they're doing? That just doesn't make sense. But when he said this with the law of karma, then sort of, okay, I can accept that, even though I think it's a twisted way of understanding this law. And I think these forces that have been up to so much mayhem over the years, I think that on the day that they say bye-bye from this earth, there is a very nasty experience waiting for them.
Have you ever heard that there's no karma over the telephone?
No.
It's like a Sikhism, at least the 3HO used to say this. There's no karma over the telephone, right? So you can imagine what telemarketers can do in India because
Oh, that explains it. I see.
yeah. And a lot of other things too, actually. Where is the U.S. currently with MK Ultra with Mike
So
Joshua?
here, all I want to point out is that Kathy O'Brien is quite known for her book Transformation of America, talking about all kinds of deep topics. But what I just found very curious here is that she wholesale believes in the official narrative of the assassination. Even here, 7075 coffee. That's actually something, right? You remind yourselves, guys, of that particular
Yeah,
thing you
that
just
was
saw,
odd.
because we're gonna bring that up again, because that's all related. So here it's curious that although she's quite hip on all this, background things, secret society stuff, and abuse and all of that, she is completely buying the official narrative, which from her position I find very strange, but may just be her individual view. And because she's Kathy O'Brien, that's just why I brought this up. But it's relating to the next few things. Let's see how we best go ahead.
Do you want me
Because
to?
what I had brought up earlier, maybe go down a little bit on the health side. So this is I just briefly mentioned. Yeah. Yes, let's briefly continue here. But in this case, let's start with Dr. Robert Malone.
Did I go too far? Hold on. Malone. Robert. There you go. Okay.
And then, but also pull up the next few links as well.
I got them all.
Are
I
you-
pulled them all up. Yeah.
Okay. So what I want to get at, let's see how I pull it together. So some time back, and that's, you earlier showed our interview with Dr. Shiva, I brought it up on that show, was the research done by Amazing Polly about a company called the Wellness Company, which is basically created in 21. All kinds of famous, apparently alternative media, doctor, celebrity personalities are involved, but they seem to have all kinds of strange connections, which I cannot all repeat right here. But anyhow, check out Amazing Polly. She's talking about the Wellness Company. Here you have something related, which is Hamamoto talking about Robert Malone and Robert Malone's background. Short information is Hamamoto is not a fan of Malone. And also similar maybe to the Wellness Company shenanigans happening, where also Malone seems to be connected to it, but it's not clear whether maybe even here, Malone is like attacking this other guy from Wellness Company, maybe only just to create PR and create a buzz. It's not exactly clear from what I understand. But again, a case of someone then during the sea crisis portraying themselves as like a savior personality, or, oh, I'm going to give you the secrets now, I'm from the industry. But actually all they may want to do is already being aware that maybe the time of this variant of mandates is over or whatever else. They want to switch businesses and already have been preparing themselves in their public personas to switch over to be, health freedom fighters suddenly, and just set up another company where then they, sell you something else and make the equal profit they did before, just with a different brand, a different marketing. And therefore, kindly simply bring up the next link. It should be the next one.
Yeah, might get lost.
Yes.
I got this. I did it. Okay, here. Red flags and the TWC.
Exactly. So this is the video that I had shared previously by Amazing Polly, where you have like her basis or background research into this. We talked about this also again on the show with Dr. Shiva. And then, maybe show the image again. Yeah. And one of those related here apparently also is 7075 Coffee, which was the ad we just saw on Rumble. Yeah. So here you have all of these related ones. And why this got back to my mind is because for some reason I've been watching Redacted, not regularly, but a few times now, because I was surprised, like, oh, such a big YouTube channel, high production value. Of course, big surprise. One of them is a former Fox, the other one a former MSNBC anchor. So I'm like, this is just perfect. And they have quite a few different types of advertisements. And then suddenly they had an advertisement for some emergency kit. This will actually be the next link to bringing up. Oh yeah, this is just an in-between Jeff Bezos' grandfather founded DARPA. But here now you have the wellness company, and maybe on the next link you have the particular. All right, oh no, it's already here. It's already here. Great. Scroll down, and let's click on one of those that we can relate to. Maybe even this one. Just go down. I think it should be on the site. Further down, we want to see the price. Yeah, so it's $300, and now everyone can check what these drugs really are worth. I have no clue, and I didn't research it, but my speculation is these are generica or something which you can get supremely cheap, and they are probably marking this up I don't know how many X times. This is only my assumption, but this would be one of the products promoted by the so-called the wellness company that has questionable origins and also questionable backgrounds, as explained by Amazing Polly. So again, why I'm bringing this up is because they advertise on Redacted, which is a quite big show, would be an alternative media show. And that's the thing Amazing Polly kind of warned of, because it seems that there may then also be some type of editorial influence, overt or not overt, because of sponsorship agreements with the wellness company. And she's even given examples of where they have terminated relationships because they then say, oh, you're veering off too far from the plantation or from the ethics guidelines or whatever we set as the new prime alternative health company. And then what they do is sell these generica stuff, which I think are most likely quite overpriced.
Probably.
And the real question is, of course, what is the thing they're funding in the background, which may be something related to mRNA and stuff like that. But again, everyone, please check Amazing Polly's original research video to get a grip on this. I just thought it was curious that they actually are the ones advertising there. And if they really are connected, even with intelligence or whatever, then those things are nothing organic at all, but another type of astroturf appearing
$80 for the 6 oils seems crazy. Yeah, these people rip you off. Yeah, okay. Admitted.
But again, probably the rip-off part may be the least of it. The real question is, what are their background connections? How were they established? Do they have intelligence connections? Why are all these popular individuals associated with them? What's going on here exactly? And could they then, because that would be smart, the ones, will get the profit because they love to take, 5 boosters, and everyone else will be taking the profit because they're afraid of whatever else, get the emergency kits, which are highly overpriced. They control the entire advertising market for all the main alternative so-called channels. So yeah, you're cashing in on both sides.
Oh my God. Everywhere you go, just evil. All right, familiar yet strange viruses lecture from BB David's newsletter. Can we go with here? It's like a Chinese lecture.
So this is a fellow researcher.
Oh, it has subtitles below. I didn't see.
Who's been following the virology topic, and from what I understand, very soon actually, I'll be able to release this with English voice. And this seems to be a critique of modern virology. I cannot summarize it yet, but again, soon it will be available in English, and I'll share it here again.
What do you think? Are you give him a British accent, or like should he be like Morgan Freeman? Like, what are you thinking for this guy? Like, what would you give him?
That's really a good question. I was already wondering what would happen if the AI could even clone it itself from Chinese, because in this case, I won't be doing it. But David will be doing it because he also speaks Chinese and created the subtitles.
So it's got to be saying
I don't
yes
know.
a lot.
But anyways, I think it's cool, and this may be quite fundamental, and it seems to be a like regular researcher, and it would be fun because also Dr. Gallo at the end of his life, according to Dr. Robert O. Young at least, was exiled, quote unquote, to Beijing because he changed his mind about the HI virus, which he was one of the main researchers of. So at the very end, Dr. Montagnier, even, it was Montagnier, he was exiled to Beijing. So maybe in China, they're up to speed on some things already. Because from what I understand, the whole Wuhan situation, maybe even you explained this to me, could literally be called the American colony as well. So there's all these strange interconnectedness here, and only because something is labeled a certain way doesn't necessarily mean the Communist Party controls it directly. So
Right.
yeah.
Everything is made in China. Right. It's true. Oh yeah, our dear friend Hutchinson.
So I'm
We
sure
need to
you know
get
about
Bernie.
this. I just kind
Bernie's.
of dropped it.
This is a friend of Bernie. Crypto Alchemist has had him on the show. We've had him together a few times actually. Very interesting fellow. He lived in Minnesota for a while. He lives in Canada. I think he is Canadian. But yeah, we have some talks with him. He's definitely an interesting person. I don't know if I'm supposed to say fellow because he also has like an androgynous like personality as well. And he's got a cool wife lady and they do pretty weird Faraday work. He's also like gotten the government upset at him several times for using all this crazy equipment, but he's collected just so much equipment through the years. He has like one-offs of military industrial equipment that just got, after some military use, put into a surplus, and he has it. Pretty amazing stuff, definitely. Bernie, you can tell, is not here because it's like early in the day, so he's probably asleep right now. But when he sees this, shout out to you, Bernie. Let's get a show on with Hutchinson and with Raph. I feel like that would be fun. He's a cool, crazy guy. Was there something that you wanted to show of his?
No, I didn't understand anything yet. I just somehow stumbled across and it was like, oh, this is cool. I want to drop it somewhere, So.
Yeah. Yeah. He will be protected in the past and future by X Church as well. Yeah, well, okay, here's a guy like doing the thing about it. Okay, yeah. All right. He did this.
Oh no,
thing
and
with
actually,
metal.
no, I think this guy actually, I think here is claiming that it's all fake or something like this.
Oh, really?
So that's also interesting. Yeah. But you always have those guys.
What do you mean fake? I mean, it's like what's he saying?
I believe he's using strings or something like this.
He's using a string to lift that. Well, that's not really. Maybe. Is that what you're trying to say? Not really necessary.
Actually, what I wanted to
do this with electromagnetism, like we've had.
Yeah,
Jeremiah
see, the thing is, honestly, I think I was just entering that on YouTube and was like, oh, first thing, this guy seems serious. Cool. I thought it says a replication. So I thought he was literally replicating it. And I think only later I was looking into the video and was like, oh, another one of these. And, nothing is real, right? And I'm sure you can do it with a string, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the thing itself is fake. But I haven't looked into it. I really can't say. But I just think it's funny that you look for something and the first thing, if it's a more fringe topic, is the quote unquote debunking, which, as we discussed, at least in the history realm, is not always the best type of research necessarily or the most honest.
Yeah. Bunch of nonsense.
So here, this is someone I know, Thomas Bachheimer, who's has been writing on economy for many years. And if anyone wants to listen to in this case, Austrian, talking about the upcoming economy in Europe, it's definitely something I can recommend. So I just, kind of want to give a shout out to someone I know because I thought it's cool that he's got this presentation on this channel. And actually, he's actually the reason why how I know Martin. So Martin, who for quite a few times has been hosting NEUROPA with us, Martin is one of the authors or co-authors for their, let's say, community journalism website or their team, let's say.
Verschärft aktiviert, also die gibt es seit 2009, aber die wurden eigentlich aktiviert zur Sanktionsumgehung, weil ja die bösen Staaten immer Sanktionen gehabt haben.
Oh, we just upset like 30% of the German audience who don't like the Austrian accent. But other than that, I think.
Zweitwichtigste
At least turn on CC, Andreas.
Okay. Well, now he just reads it in German, bro. Hold on, I have to fix that too. Let's see. German auto translate it.
Oh, so many clicks necessary. English.
Boom, okay.
In der USA hat ein berühmtes Telefonat gemacht mit FACT
USA made a famous phone call with the I was muted for a second. FAQ in the EU, we asked what the EU says when it comes to the FEU. Well, we can go
I think they're missing some words.
Sounds like it. BRICS, Well, yeah. What was this topic?
So he's basically one thing, because he's also now based in Dubai, I believe. He's oftentimes talking about the whole BRICS thing. So similarly to what some of the things Martin has spoken about, with how there seems to be another power block forming, he's often like giving a quite interesting perspective on these, let's say, geopolitical relationships and potential economic developments, or how the East may be, rising or creating their independent systems and changing geopolitics as a consequence.
I was just showing some of the Martin Hip flags video, which we need to relabel so it's easy to find. I think it should be easier than just Glory of NEUROPA. I'm gonna call it like Martin Hip flag, something that like the flag description or
Well, you can always just add
explanation
more to
flags.
the title, so you have 100
Yeah.
signs, 100 symbols.
But like, for the love of God, it should be easier to look up than just that. So like, I'll add flags to the freaking title. Okay,
For
I'll
the
do that
love
right now.
of God, it's like literally every episode has a deliberately cryptic title. So unless you
Well,
really know,
I
you'll
mean,
never find out anything.
I don't know what we're doing. My bad. But no, this is an amazing video.
It's just for
That's
the
one of
insiders
reasons
what
I'm
to
like,
say, like
I
everything we do.
I do want people to have the opportunity to see this one more, because it's such a great breakdown that he does on what these color schemes mean, what these symbols mean, and even just like the first few minutes of it, right? Like, let me just actually pull up just that to hear Martin, because Martin, he's eloquent.
So the crazier the flag gets, the lower it is in the hierarchy. So most of the African states where you have tons of colors and tons of symbols, they are really low, if you want to put it that way. Okay, so this is the basic hierarchy. And then another thing that becomes important is actually the color. And the color is actually down here. So the color black means that you are not self-sufficient. You are not autonomous. You are basically, you are a slave. People take your money. And here we already get there. So German has the black in his flag, and we will actually get to that.
Conscripted and in debt state. Okay.
Exactly. Then we have white. White stands for capitalism, for a king, or for things like oil or iron or things like that, and also the public law, the UN law. That's what white stands.
Oh, like surrender to the UN law.
Exactly.
And banking systems as well, right?
Exactly. Then we have blue. Blue is for business. It's also for war. Then we
like naval mercantile class.
Have red. Red is probably the easiest one. Red looks like blood. Is something that has to do that is sacred. It stands for blood or something holy. Then we have yellow. Yellow up to this day is even the color of the Liberal Party in Germany, the FDP, the Liberal Party. So they are yellow, and it stands for money, gold, investment. Then we have orange. Orange is for government, if you will, that way. So for anything that is administration, that's the better term. Then we have green. Green is actually for land or for anything that you can harvest, if you will. And finally, violet is religious. So like whatever, Vatican, Dalai Lama, if we think about the color of the priests wear during Easter Mass, for instance, or Good Friday.
So obviously, yeah, it's like there's about 90 minutes of this, and you should definitely watch this. But it's an interesting breakdown of why the colors are, and then beyond that, why vertical versus horizontal stripes, or what the number of stripes are. I think this is a fantastic episode. So look for Glory of NEUROPA, and then we'll add the word flags to the title so that you can find it. I'll do that right now. My bad.
Thank you, Andreas.
So then, did you want to show any of these other ones too? This one from earlier. The what's this video about?
Right. Okay, so this is a apparently genuine real world example of what happens if you criticize the lockdowns in Germany or what happens 2 years later. So the individual discussed here is Dr. Rainer Füllmich. I may have brought him up before. He's basically been a lawyer. There's been different perspectives on what he was doing, earning money, this and that, with banks or with bigger contracts. There's differing perspectives on how, legit he was. But anyhow, now, during the crisis, he made something called Corona-Ausschuss, so the Corona Committee from Germany. And literally for like 2 years, they invited experts from all over the world via video conference, had like every week, like 6-hour long talks. And really, I would say, and also at least according to the statements here of their lawyers and so on, and many individuals, even I know, had a big impact on the, let's say, discussion and alternative media and so on, because they really brought forth many great experts that talked about psychology, about medical, about legal things, and really educated many people. And now, 2 years after the whole thing is supposedly over, because of some very strangely, apparently fudged court case where people are claiming they were damaged who weren't damaged, people that didn't really contribute anything, also lawyers, claim they should have a stake in it. They claim money was misused, although it wasn't. And the end result is the main guy, Rainer Füllmich, now for months, is imprisoned, apparently in such bad conditions that, in every other country, the UN or whoever would be screaming already. This is one of the things that actually try now to get some kind of committee for prisons or something from the UN there to basically verify that, yes, he's already held in isolation for months, but the only official way would be 15 days. And this is Germany. Yeah. So welcome to Central Europe. If you're a political dissident, and he appears to be a genuine dissident from all I can tell, this is how you're being treated. So good day and good night. And even one of the human rights activists there, he's saying, yeah, well, he's being asked, so what are you expecting, this and that? And he's saying, oh, I'm not expecting anything, because we know by now all the mechanisms and so on, they're defunct, basically. So, and I've already heard this 1 or 2 years back from lawyers in Austria that kind of said, if you try to do something in regards to the lockdowns and the mandates and so on, the courts were just blocking everything, just crazy.
Yeah. Well, at least they got some reporting done on some actual publicity on the story.
Yes, but the real thing is that this guy is not the youngest anymore, and it may well be that he's literally being kept there in a sense. They call it white torture, and they say many of these criteria actually are met. And then I'm like, what the F is this? You're doing something genuine and so on. And you're not even misusing the money or misleading anyone. He even had Dr. Stefan Lanka on, who is one of my, how should I say, the individuals I think did really great work with the virology test. I mentioned this many times, Dr. Stefan Lanka. Even let him talk. And even when they had the conversation, because they had a doctor on the panel as well and 1 or 2 other lawyers, and the others were more like, oh, Lanka was on together with Dr. Andy Kaufman, who also then looked into this virology and what is their, existence, this and that. They were explaining their case, and the others on the panel were more like, oh, what are you saying? Like, you're a little bit crazy or whatever. And Füllmich actually, and I looked at that episode very closely, of course, was actually the one who tried to be most diplomatic and give them the most space to actually explain everything properly. Whereas their head doctor, who previously had done great things by averting the avian flu crisis, by making some steps back then when he was in a position of authority, but he seemed to be old school, to be like, oh, I cannot possibly consider that contagion works differently, and was more like trying to shut the conversation down. So from all of these, let's say, points, I understand just a tiny bit, it seems Füllmich may really have been done honest inquiry, let's say, and this is the gratitude he gets from the German state, which of course was not happy that he's providing a counter narrative to their propaganda, which now, last thing, through the release of the so-called RKI files, RKI, this is was the German Institute for all the medical recommendations during that time. And now it seems they finally released some official papers, and only from that very low bar level conspiracy stuff is perfectly proven how much political pressure was applied, all kinds of shenanigans. And again, consider that's only the thing that they now even released to you in writing, right? So
Yeah.
although also it's important to understand, according to the SPARS plan, SPARS is one of these pandemic plans they put out. It is part of the program to eventually demolish these medical institutions or something, or just have someone as a scapegoat. So just to keep in mind, that's also part of the overall agenda plan, at least to some of those game plans that have been released. This one again called SPARS pandemic, I believe. So yeah.
Wow. Crazy. The SPARS plan. Okay. Well, we got some of these doctors gone wild, but maybe you wanted to push ahead. False Memory Syndrome Foundation. Kind of crazy. Oh, well, yeah. False Memory Syndrome Foundation. To seek the reasons for the spread of false memory syndrome. So people that were thinking that they were kidnapped by Satanists and like politicians, why would they think that? Must be the movies and the video games they see. It must. We'll pay extra money to make sure that it is, you know?
Exactly. So that's the point I wanted to bring out, basically, because I've been, again, watching some of those witness testimonies, people claiming they're super soldiers, God knows what. It's sometimes really difficult to discern, who is talking what exactly. But this I wanted to bring out because somewhere I picked this up, that this foundation, like you just explained, was solely created to make sure that you can tell some people they remember something differently. And it's just, of course, highly suspicious, right? If you have invest that much money just to discredit someone only because you
you're
potentially
looking
want
for
to
a
cover up.
specific narrative to exist, and you wanted to cover up another narrative. Exactly. What would Bashar say about this?
All right, so here actually what I'd say is we save this for our show with Jaron.
Okay.
Because he's also into that, and then we can discuss it. Just a fun thing to look at, different prophecies made over the years, how accurate or not that they may be.
Yeah.
And let's see, in history we have a few more things. All right, yeah, Sham Ross released a new video. I haven't properly seen all of it yet. I just again want to point out his channel. Maybe just click on his channel and go on the most popular thing. Okay, because he's really providing some great information with the idea of vertical and horizontal control. Again, summarizing it, he's claiming that there are different world systems in terms of control of actions, but the only real difference is that some have a more of a monarchical approach, which would today be akin to Russia or China, the way it's presented, and others have a republican approach, which would be more like Western democracy, where you still only have a particular ruling class ever being selected to rule, but you kind of have them switch around every few years. So he's definitely worth watching, and he has a quite unique perspective, I would say. I think I brought him up before. I'm not sure if you've seen his stuff yet, but at least, let's say, the main things or main documentaries he did, definitely worth checking out to understand his perspective, let's say.
All right.
He's tying everything back to Switzerland, basically, which also seems not to be completely off, and an organization that he calls Octagon, and just again showing that all the while is a station, that there are connections between the or behind the apparent warmongers, where it may well be that many of the so-called theaters of war really are theaters, although of course the cattle still is dying.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the underground in Switzerland means it like this. It's all right. Well, we'll have to check out Gire and his channel, and we'll talk about that a bit more. What about also? Yeah, you brought up RKX.
Nachiketa also did a great interview with him. If you enter Sean Ross Nachiketa, you don't have to do it now, but just everyone in chat. Nachiketa did like a great interview with him 2 months ago. This one I just wanted to bring up. This was apparently already a year old. I honestly didn't watch it yet. I just thought it's curious that RKX talks with Michael Tessarian. Yeah, but I can't talk about it yet because I haven't watched it yet. Also, the quality on this one is a little bit strange. It's a strange type of recording. But I just found it interesting that Tessarian had a talk with RKX. I guess this was initially members only and only released now. So, yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Ancient Omens, the Phoenix on J Dreamers.
Yeah, somebody commented this on my channel. I think I remember that Jay Dreamers was a great inspiration for Stellium 7. Could this be
Oh yeah,
correct? Or am I dreaming now? I think
I'm
also
not
some
sure.
kind of guy called Hangman or
I've
something.
definitely interacted with Jay Dreamers, and I found him to be a gentleman and a scholar. Let me say that.
Well, that's great. And I just brought this up because Archaics always talks about this Phoenix phenomenon, or which may be a reset thing or whatever. And somebody just pointed out to me that Jay Dreamers is talking about this a lot. I was aware of his channel, but not about this aspect too much. So I'm still
Mhm.
getting into it because the main question is basically, is there a recurring phenomenon? If there is it really a natural phenomenon? What I want to know, what does it really represent?
Act
Because
as
it
the wit.
may well just be lights in the sky and then some crazy humans deliberately causing floods still, right? Or turning up the energy weapons or opening up the hell gates so we can fight
What?
again. I don't know. But something
Lactantius. Lactantius.
he's
Hold on, I forgot who
explaining quite well
Lactantius was.
these
Oh, he was a
usual
Christian author
phenomenon.
and an apologist from the late 3rd to the early 4th century AD. So this is from the Dark Ages, okay? So this Christian author from the Dark Ages goes on to talk about the Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, like he's doing legit work. I say, like, if you want to check out somebody who's like looking into some of the lore, Jay Dreamers, cool guy. Also, Graham Hancock's Guide to the Colburn by Yvonne Whiteman. If you've even heard of the Colburn, you're in a minority.
Yeah, there's nothing I can say about this. I just wanted to put it up there also because it's a Graham Hancock thing, which is someone I would have to revisit very closely.
I got in trouble years ago when I was not like trouble, but on Wikipedia because I did a chain. I did some whole bunch of stuff with regards to Merlin and Excalibur and Camelot and King Arthur in relation to Egyptian, North African crusade history, right? And how like most of the King Arthur story is actually related to the Crusades, and that Merlin was a Setian priest, coming from this Egyptian tradition. They didn't like it, so they took it down. But if you look into the Colburn, it's a fascinating 11 books, 6 Egyptian, 5 Celtic, first published in New Zealand. And yeah, the Coldies, or the Celtic followers of Christianity, brought to the southwest Britain by Joseph of Arimathea in the 1st century AD. So definitely worth looking into. I mean, if you look at the patrician Catholicism, there's definitely a more druidic push at the beginning of this Celtic Christianity, and the Colburn is also a bit more mystical
Well,
because of that
that's
Egyptian side.
interesting because they claim that these scriptures found in Klosterneuburg, close to Vienna, from medieval
Really?
times or in medieval Latin, they claim that this is related to Stephen Harding, who is, or at least they explain it the way that it's supposed to be a druid or something. Of course, at the same time, looking at Fomenko or David Ewing Jr.'s work, I'd also put all of that into question again. But yeah, that's what I can say.
Fair enough. I mean, like, who knows even? Obviously, there'd be like kind of a David Ewing Jr. thing to say everything's unreal, but I go the other way, right? Like, I think like most things that people say are
It's
unreal are a
hyper
bit
real.
more, yeah, hyper real. Like, so like the Vril, um, is like a 1871 science fiction book, right, by Edward Bueller Lytton. So you could say that the Vril book is somehow a fiction, but wouldn't that be like a disservice? Isn't it a bit more than that? Isn't the bell and the genie and the lamp? Isn't there a bit more to it than that? Oh,
But I'm
every
sure
time you
there's
try to see a picture, like I would forget that it won't let me just. There you go.
there's always a bit more to it. That's for sure.
Yeah, you got to read the Vril. Okay, so then you had Jay Parker. No, we already do that. We were going to go to Lisa Basher, last president. You want to bring back Ingersoll Lockwood again. We told Bernie's kid, about how Barron Trump is like super tall, because Q's pretty tall. I bet you he'll be probably around that same height, actually. And the idea that there was a book about a president named Trump from the 19th century,
If you want to show the image, you have to put it up.
Again with this dang thing. It's because I tried doing the tab for the sound,
I know.
and it just closes
fine.
it every time. But yeah, the last president, 1900, Ingersoll Lockwood. I don't know. The point is still the same. It's not really important. It's just the cover of the book. But telling a kid about a 19th century book that predicts the future is at least as interesting as the feeling that you get yourself about it, right? Like they have the same thoughts. I thought that was kind of interesting. Did you read this yet? Or I think did I put this up? I have this, I think, on my channel.
I just wanted to bring it up because I didn't know that she wrote another book and not only this underground adventure stuff. And I was like, oh, what a great coincidence that she's also writing about the last president, whereas Trump said apparently you only need to go out to vote one last time. So
let's do it
good
one
luck,
more time,
everyone.
right?
What can I say?
1900, or The Last President, by Ingersoll Lockwood, of the New York Bar, supplied by the American News Company, New York, 1896.
All right, so it's some early AI, but you know what? It's still pretty impressive, I think, 3 years ago.
Stricken down, beaten, torn, trampled, dragged. It was quick work.
And this is
They had
already
faced
voice
howling
clone,
savages.
you know? So this
Yeah,
is
bro.
this is
I'm
so
like-
based, people today won't even realize.
Yeah, dude, I'm pretty much grandpa when it comes to AI. But this
yeah.
is the whole book. You can read it or you can listen to it if it's bearable to you to listen to a book or to read a
Awesome.
book about the future written in the past. And it also talks about the anarchists, which I think is really fascinating. In the 1900 president story, it's that the anarchists are trying to destroy the Fifth Avenue tower, this Trump Tower.
That particular trope with the anarchists is actually also in the game 1800 AD, the civilization game. They also have a like add-on about the anarchists. I was wondering what this is about. They wanted to destroy Trump Tower in a story, or what are you talking about now?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think they also take down the roof of the White House, or not the White House, the Congress building ends up falling down. Tacitus and Bracciolini. What's this about, eh?
So this was a document brought forward by Fresh Translator, who was on the panel with Nachiketa recently. It's published on my channel. And he was using this as a reference. I honestly haven't looked into this too deeply yet. I guess here he's saying that this is about some historical forgery. Again, for me, it's so suspicious, these release dates, 1978, but whatever. So I haven't looked into this deeply yet. It's interesting to see because this may be actually saying that one of these, I guess, old important books is, forged, basically.
Usually.
The next link actually gives, you already have it, is the full one. And then what you can see, the next video is Fresh Translator's video, where he said he found some inconsistencies in the work of Fomenko. However, from the talk that I just had with David just now before we spoke, it's going to be released soon. It is not that, according to David at least, Fomenko like made a mistake or deliberately changed something, but that he was simply massively simplifying it. And then when looking closer, it may appear as if there are omissions or things like that. So in any case, this will be released soon, and then people can make up their own mind as to how accurate or not it is. But yeah, so far, from what I can understand, it seems to check out. But the reason for changing it is more like as I said, simplification of Fomenko's work. That's why the graphs look the way they look.
Fair enough. Okay. Let's pull up a little bit more. We've got some conspiracy or art. What do you think? Conspiracy? Do we do?
Let's see. Yeah, we spoke about Lady Gaga already. Monolatry, maybe pull up monolatry just because it's an interesting definition to know about. And then maybe proof
The
that
worship and
mainstream news.
existence of many gods, but the consistent worship of only one deity.
You have to switch the tab.
Ugh,
apparently.
What a freaking thing, this thing here. Okay, monolatry. Where'd it go again? The belief in existence of many gods, but with the consistent worship of only one deity. The term monolatry was perhaps first used by Julius Wellhausen.
Monolatry is distinguished from monotheism, which asserts the existence of only one god, and henotheism, a religious system in which the believer worships one god while accepting that others, for example in different areas, may worship different gods with equal validity. Oh, that's also a nice thing to know. So I just wanted to bring it up because the main thing is always idolatry, right? And what is idolatry? And I just was never aware of the term monolatry. This was just some kind of religious philosophical debate where I read someone accusing someone else or saying, well, if you think this and that way, it opens up the door to monolatry, which would still not be monotheism, right? Whereas you would say there literally is only one God. Yeah, but
right.
I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not going to claim I actually know what all of these people really believe. So,
right.
But I thought to know the definition is good.
Monolatry versus henotheism is interesting. I mean, obviously, there's more than one God. That's just common sense at this point. But the idea that you worship your God, I mean, because it says so in the Bible, like literally. The gods are talking to each other. Come, let us go down there and let us just confuse them. Oh, if we don't knock down their tower, they will come up and be with us. You know, it's like pretty.
Sure, but
Unless
I'm pretty
gods are
sure
schizophrenic, God's talking to themselves, and that's
yeah,
kind of
these
like
are only
pretty obvious.
schizophrenic entities believing that they are God and then being labeled as such. I'm pretty sure.
But then there's also like they're like jealous of themselves. They're like, don't ever worship any other gods. Whatever you do, like, so that's a big part of it. Like, more than killing yourselves. Like, if you kill yourselves, I can live with that. Just don't worship other gods than me that don't exist. Yeah, no. Obviously, whoever told you that there's only one God is just like trying to sell you a book. I don't know what to tell you. Like, there's more than one God, and there's a family of gods. But the idea of the henotheism is interesting because I wouldn't have thought that henotheism or monolatry, for that matter, had anything to do with the supremacy of your god. See, like monolatry is like idolatry, where you're putting one god above the other gods for yourself. That's closer to that than henotheism. Henotheism does say that like you worship specifically, it is right to worship specifically one god as opposed to another. But it doesn't necessarily just exclude another culture worshiping their own god. But for you, it's true. It's the idea that you're supposed to worship. Atonism is the idea for henotheism.
Wouldn't real monotheism bring you to the same thing when you're saying, well, you're worshiping the same God, you're just clothing him differently?
I mean, I think that monotheism is kind of not that different than like deism, I guess. Because deism kind of doesn't preclude that there can be further, I don't know, like, so deism kind of suggests that there's a supreme being, but it doesn't really preclude that another could become a supreme being unless you create that that rule that you don't have to have that caveat. And it's basically because everything that exists is so incredible that it has to have come from an organization or a system. So deism on that level is completely reasonable. It's a better excuse than nihilism or some sort of abstract atheist evolution or something like that. But deism, I think, is kind of like anarchism also, because anarchism can lead to an elite like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk becoming like a Rockefeller in government that becomes like the new world order. Like any sort of free system can allow for the potential of an elite to become an Ubermensch or a god in the case of deism. So
are you suggesting that the modern day apparent oligarchy is fundamentally based on or historically rooted
just leave it there. It's just based.
Historically rooted in anarchy? I mean, if there was divine
Yeah,
order,
of course.
maybe they would not have
It's of
ascended
course.
to the
It's
places they have ascended to.
of course. Like the only thing, let's put it that way, the only thing that keeps what did you call them? Like the oligarchy? The only thing that keeps the oligarchy from further potential realization of dream is the lack of anarchy in nature, right? Nature is not truly a pure anarchy because in nature there's certainly a hierarchy, right? And there's nature itself, the mechanistic nature of nature is sort of the machine's own prejudice and own classification. It's like sorting you in a recycling bin. So humans have kind of created anarchy, and anarchy is what people don't want to admit they strive for when they talk about like they want equality. Like they like want women and men and children punching each other in the face, you know, like they want equity, they want, you know what I mean, like it's a crazy thing that they want. They don't understand what they're saying, but that's anarchy.
Yeah, many people don't understand what they're saying or what they want, I would say.
Yeah, but like to be fair, I know people who do know what they mean when they say that and still want women and children and men punching each other in the face because it represents a certain level of freedom, right? Like there's a certain level of freedom in a mosh pit. And so there's something to be said for like the lack of moral restriction, or I don't know. It's crazy. It's not something that like really someone should like, you know, strive for per se, but at the same time, it's a thing that happens in nature, and from that often hierarchies are evolved, and then people start saying like, okay, these are our values, like from this we protect this, we destroy that, and it becomes consensus, and then the individual riots and integration occurs. So like there's a reason why order comes out of chaos. He laughs.
I mean, yeah, sure, I agree.
Fine.
In terms of template, I completely agree with you. You know, it's always then depends on the exact execution and all the interests involved and all the ego involved and all of that. But yeah, as pure principle, you know, I'm sure many of these Freemasonic patterns, you know, must have something to them or they wouldn't be working at all.
Drink mineral water.
So what I got for the outro actually is this one we already looked at yesterday. This is just something fun, I guess, to check out. Western
Yeah, remember guys,
tree.
Western, yeah.
And for the end segment or tuning out, we can show proof that the mainstream is fake and scripted propaganda. It's in the conspiracy section, but I'm sending you the link right here.
I got it.
Yeah, anything else? Because I think we can just leave that for a minute, and then I think we can just play that at the end for a minute, and then, you know, just
all right.
stop
Yeah, it's cool. I gotta figure out how to be you know, tomorrow, I think no, so Monday I'm going to the Dresden Saxon College University, and I had told them, I found out that there was the Dresden Codex, and so I emailed and I was like, can I see the thing? And they're like, yeah. And then like, do you want? And then they found out, I guess I forget if how I didn't say too much. Like I just like I think I said ich bin ein YouTuber or something like that. Like just so like they're like, okay, cool. So they found my YouTube thing. So like I'm gonna hopefully have a tour person to help with this, and so I'll be able to like see the codex, like not just like, you know what I mean. So that'll be nice, and you'll probably all get to see it as well. So Deutschland.
Sweet.
You know?
Awesome.
Dresden. Yeah, bro. It's pretty cool. And yeah, so and then what else? Isn't there something else? That's pretty much it, I guess. We'll start with that. Let me put on the actual music sound for this video. We'll try that.
Priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness.
A child's happiness is priceless.
Oh wait. Oh yeah. Love you, Raph. Talk to you in a minute after this video.
priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
Can we play music at the same time?
Is priceless,
Yeah, okay.
especially on a birthday.
Well, child's happiness is priceless, right? Especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday. A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on their birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially when it comes to their birthday.
Absolutely.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday. A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
Well, a child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's smile is priceless, especially on a birthday. A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
You know, a child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday. A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday. You like that?
In consumer news, economic factors may take some spring out of the Easter Bunny skepticism.